On Broadway, there were nights where tickets were only sold to people who identified as black. Are you going to do that in the West End?
I'm so excited to, yeah.
You are?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the things that we have to remember is that people have to be radically invited into a space to know that they belong there. And in most of our country, in most places in the West, poor people and black people have been told that they do not belong inside of the theater. In America, Jim Crow existed to literally tell them that they could not sit in the same theater as white people.
We don't live in Jim Crow era anymore. I hate people that say this shit. We weren't born into that era, and likely you weren't either, judging by your appearance. And I have never been to a theater and felt excluded, ever. And I've been to the theater loads of times. I have black friends that work in theater. What is this idiot on about? We don't live in those times. You're not from that era. You've never experienced anything Jim Crow related. All you're doing is trying to capitalize on maybe some drummed up emotions from people that feel disenfranchised when they shouldn't. That's all you're doing. At no point have I ever been excluded from any of these things. Not going to the cinema to watch things that maybe doesn't have a massive black audience. Every time I go, if I go to see something where there's a predominantly white audience, I never feel excluded. I don't feel excluded when I go to watch Lion King or Book of Mormon or Wicked or Woman in Black or any of those things. You don't need to do black only nights. That's ridiculous. And I would encourage every single black person to not buy tickets to those things. We don't need to segregate from people anymore. The UK is a very welcoming place. It's not perfect. We have a lot of problems here. But trust me, you'd rather be here than other places in the world. You would rather be here. There's places in the world that I would advise black people to not go to. It's not the UK though. I walk around feeling as safe as most people in the UK. The only reason I would feel unsafe is because we have a crime problem. But that's nothing to do with skin color.
And so for me, as someone who wants and yearns for black and brown people to be in the theater, who comes from a working class environment, and so wants like people who do not make, over six figures a year to feel like theater is a place for them, it is a necessity to radically invite them in with initiatives that say you're invited, specifically you.
Right. And if the price of that is saying to people who are, just because they're white, you can't come, you're not allowed in this space, does that make you uncomfortable?
Well, no one's saying, listen, there are a litany of places in our country, in all of our countries, that are generally inhabited by only white people. And no one has questions about that.
What is that exactly? You know of any?
No, I don't know that, but the point's invalid because if that is a case and there is places that is mainly white people going, that's not to say that there's been a message put out to say black people can't go. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's not really correlating right now with the concept of creating something and saying no white people are allowed versus people going somewhere and not putting out a rule, but only they want to go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, I'll give you an example. I know somewhere where I normally only see white people, not very many black people, like Ascot, like horse racing. I normally just see white people there, but do you know what? Like I said, I dated that girl that was into horse racing, and I've been to Ascot before, and I never felt excluded. If anything, they were trying to be more welcoming to me. Like they were being overly welcoming. I was like, relax, we can all just watch the horse race. It's not a big deal. And even if somebody was saying something under their breath, so do black people. When I'm with certain black guys that I know, they make comments about white people when they come into their spaces. I saw a white person walk into a Jamaican restaurant. I already knew what the guys were going to start saying. As soon as they walked out, insults. It happens. Like, it's not a big deal. But I've never felt excluded when I've gone to a thing that is predominantly attended by white people. That's never been a thing in my lifetime. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying Jim Crow didn't exist, but we don't live in those times anymore. You're not from the slave era. That's what all of these people don't seem to understand. They're trying to capitalize on the hard times that their ancestors might have gone through, or even their grandparents or whatever. You don't experience that in London. You don't go to a theater and they don't include you because you're black and you don't have 3 figures. That does not happen. That's a lie. And any black person that feels excluded from the theater when you can go online and buy tickets and sit there and enjoy the production like everybody else is an idiot. You're all idiots. You're all dumb. I do not support any of this nonsense. And anyone with a brain cell wouldn't support it either.
And no one is saying that by inviting Black audiences here, you were uninvited. The idea of a blackout night is to say, this is a night that we are specifically inviting Black people to fill up the space, to feel safe with a lot of other Black people in a place where they often do not feel safe.
Okay, and does it play differently? Does the theatre feel different?
100%. It feels...
In what way? Explain.
I think that, we all... Let's not act as though we do not know that culturally, Black audiences and white audiences respond to things differently.
At no point have I ever gone to a theatre production, horse racing, cricket, football, whatever is predominantly viewed by white people, and felt unsafe because of the colour of my skin, because I'm half Black. That is called bullshit. That is race baiting. If this guy is scared to go into these spaces, that's because he's a little bitch. Not because of his skin colour, not because of the racists around him. He's trying to make out like there's, I don't know, some sort of like hyper over the top KKK EDL situation going on in theatres. In London of all places. Have you ever been somewhere and like bear witness to this, where you might see that one Black person and they're being ostracized for being in the venue?
No.
This is a race baiter, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're the kind of Black person that thinks that you should be participating in something like this, unfortunately, you are also a donut.
I think the biggest importance is that we need space for ourselves, just to feel free and exist.
Feel free and exist. What would happen if I went? Am I allowed in? Can I put one foot in and the other part has to be out? Like, where do mixed race people sit on this? Are we not Black enough? Are we too white? Are we mongrels? Like, how does this work exactly? Do you have to be dark-skinned Black? What if I'm Black but very light-skinned? Or what if I'm Black but, I don't know, from Brazil? Like that other American guy that was saying, oh, it's not your culture or whatever. What if I'm Black from a part of the world where they don't deem like I have struggled? Like, how far does this stupidity go? How many checks and balances are there?
Is that what they'd call the white gaze?
I think so. I think that's part of it.
What do you think of that term?
I mean, it's accurate.
I think spaces where people can just be free, be open and feel comfortable are necessary for all community.
What's wrong with white people?
What's wrong with them? It's not that there's anything wrong with white people. I think it's in the same way that like an LGBTQ plus space is for LGBTQ plus people.
His famous quote, of course, where he says, I had a dream that my children would be judged on the content of the character, not the colour of their skin.
What he was saying was that all people should be judged evenly, but we are not judged evenly in the traditional theatre spaces.
How are Black people treated unfairly in theatre? Can you give some examples?
Oh, I'm not here to go into that now because this is a very casual interview outside of another event.
You could give one example, you race baiter. You see what I mean? If you truly believed this and you felt strongly about it, you could fly off examples.
I mean, I'm trying to sit here and think of examples, but I actually can't think of any.
No, there aren't any. Look, when someone asks me about something that I think passionately about, what do I think passionately about? Or what do I know a lot about and how I'm contentious? Like, for example, if somebody asked me, Mike, what are your issues with Mortal Kombat? Right, the new Mortal Kombat game. I'll rattle off answers all day to you, like that.
Go check out Mike's other channel.
My gaming channel. I'll rattle off answers to you constantly. If you ask me, Mike, can you give me 10 things that you like about Lord of the Rings? I'll rattle off answers to you straight away. If you ask me, give me 10 things that you don't like about reality TV, I'll give you answers straight away. If you knew what you were talking about and you were as passionate and as well informed as you thought, you could have just given him one. But you don't know what you're talking about. You've never been segregated from a theatre. Again, you're not from the Jim Crow time. You've never experienced that level of racism before. You don't even know what that level of racism looks like. The kind of racism that I witnessed, that they caught on camera from those times back then, was so like, it seems so absurd. It was almost like a Looney Tunes. Like I was watching Looney Tunes. Like it was so unbelievably stupid, like stupidly over the top with how they would treat Black people, that, yeah, if those people were like, oh, we don't feel safe around white people, I would understand, because they came from that time where a guy could be walking down the road and they literally just fuck him up because he's black. Start calling him monkey, chase him down the road with bananas. I've seen all that on video from way back in the day, in the Jim Crow era. But we don't come from those times. Even as far back as they have video footage of things happening like post World War II. But again, that's 1940s, 1950s. A lot of people have died now. A lot of those people are gone. If it's like someone from an older generation that's still around today, I can understand why they might have some animosity. But this woman's not that old. The donut before her was not that old, and the donut before that was not that old. So I'm not hearing it.
And I have many experiences of being treated as other within the spaces I am working by people who are in the audience. I'm not talking about theatre
audience members.
By audience members.
So what would they do? Just
no. This is not honouring my experience to come and try and trivialise it by just giving you some short answer.
I'm not trivialising it.
I'm saying it would. I'm not.
That's what waffling looks like. How could he possibly trivialize it? By asking you, by wanting to know your experience, right? He's asking you of your experience so that he can understand, so that people watching can understand. And you're talking about trivialized. You trivialized it by just glazing over it. You made an overarching statement about white people. You couldn't back it up. And then you said to him, don't trivialize this whole situation. All of these people are full of shit. If I ever came across this theater and I saw people walking in, I would just give them, I'd mean mug them. I would just be like, idiot, imbecile 1, imbecile 2. Just a bunch of sheep. You may as well be on a farm, just all herded around a flock. Whatever the media tells you, whatever sob story they try to spin you, then someone will say to them, don't you think it's a little bit racist? I mean, you're segregating yourself and you're telling other people don't walk in. And they'll be like, oh, how dare you?